Alrighty, my friends, welcome back to video numero dos. Out here, we're going to be talking about fish now. So we've talked about marine reptiles and marine birds. And now I want to talk about the different kinds of fish that are out there. Of course, I won't be able to go into details of every single little fish that's around. We would be here for ages, and I just simply don't have the time. But there's some basic overall concepts that I want to cover, and some also just like some various categories of fish. So here we go. So fish. These little buddies are the dominant group of all of the Nekton, right? So the dominant sort of category, if you will. And fish are found at all depths in all oceans. There's not an ocean without any fish yet. But the distribution of fish directly and indirectly is dependent on the ocean's primary producers, mainly meaning there that they need nutrients, right? So directly dependent on the primary producers. So like wherever the plankton bloom, the fish will come, basically. But indirectly, in a sense where fish can also just exist in kind of higher productive areas. Like, for example, in the bay, there's tons of fish here. There is kind of a high plankton rate, but kind of cool. And mostly fish are concentrated in upwelling areas and shallow coastal areas and estuaries. So generally places where there's nutrition, right? If we remember, the main contributors or factors, limiting factors to plankton blooms, one is sunlight, two is nutrients. So if there's nutrients, if there's plankton, there's gonna be fish. It's a whole thing. And almost 80% of more than the 30,000 species of fish are in schools for some point of their life. So if you've heard the term school of fish before, first think about what you think it might mean. And again, this always references back to Finding Nemo, but like when it's basically like that big group of fish together. So schooling can be just a couple of fish together and like howling around, or in like these really large, massive swarms. The larger swarms is helpful to reduce individual encounters with predators, or of course to confuse predators as well. And it's much more difficult to target individuals. Again, going back to Finding Nemo, like that big group of fish that helped give Marlin and Dory directions, right? And so what's also really interesting with schooling in these large groups is it can help enhance foraging success. Like more eyes is better than no eyes, right? So it can also save energy because they're swimming together. So everyone's kind of moving at the same time in the same pace, which kind of allows fluid dynamically for less energy to be exerted by an individual fish. And presumably, this would increase reproduction success by maintaining population, which is constrained by a particular region. So, like, for example, anchovies and what's it called? Sardines. Like, they're really, really small fish, but they, because they are all together at once, then like you don't have to actively go out and find a mate. You're just right there. Which is kind of a nice thing. So there's different categories of fish that we'll talk about, kind of breaking it down between jawless fish, sharks, skates and rays, bony fish, and different deep sea species. So I will warn you, a little bit of a trigger warning, the pictures on the next slide are slightly horrifying. So just so we're aware. Starting with the jawless fish. Super cute, right? These fish have a sucking mouth, or dental plates, which is what we see here. They tend to lack any sort of paired fins and stomachs, which is kind of weird. And these are the most primitive of fishies. These can be predators, scavengers, and parasites. So this is a lamprey here, and this is a hagfish. So they kind of have a bad reputation because they look absolutely horrendous and horrific, but they actually do serve a really big purpose in the whole food chain. They're not like a mosquito where you're like, what in tarnation is that even doing? That's ridiculous. No, they actually have a purpose. They break things down really easily, hence like their evolutionary mouth shape thing, and they also are food for some other larger creatures as well. So they do indeed serve a purpose. They look real weird though, so I don't think I would really want to come in contact with one of these. If my memory serves, actually, I think the Monterey Bay Aquarium has a couple of lamprey fish, so it might be kind of fun to go see that if you ever go down to Monterey. Next up, and quite honestly, in my opinion, probably some of the most important creatures in our oceans, aside from whales, but sharks. Sharks. So, sharks are fantastic creatures. They have evolved through their millions of years in our oceans to have really interesting characteristics. So they can see incredibly well under dim lit conditions. So basically they can kind of hunt at night very easily and nicely. They have a very, very good sense of smell and taste. And they also have taste bud-like receptors all over their body. Excuse me. They also have receptors on their sides, which are sensitive to touch, vibration, currents, sound, and pressure. So basically they can really easily like differentiate between things around them in the water. And they have some receptors which are kind of up by their eyeballs or like in their nose area that can also detect electricity. So all fish output some sort of like low frequency electricity, so they can detect that, and that helps them hunt. Some of these sketches here, the top three are some, what's it called? Oh wait, I skipped one. Have receptors you can see in these sketches here, which is pretty cool. Boop, boop, there we go. And sharks are the most ancient, and so they first appeared in the fossil record about 450 million years ago, so quite some time. They've been able to, evolve quite nicely from that. Most of them bear live young. Their skeletons are made of cartilage, so they're part of like an order of fish that are made of cartilage. And their scales are almost like teeth, so they are incredibly abrasive. If you ever want to like try and pet a shark, it's not very smooth and soft like you can kind of see. I don't know, sometimes they maybe look like they would be not soft, but like just not abrasive if you were to pet it or pet them, and that's not exactly the case. They also have a ton of teeth, right? So they can have up to 7 rows of teeth that are quickly replaced if they are lost. And there's at least 2 main types of sharks that are actually filter feeders. We have the basking shark and the whale shark. So those are two types of shark that actually don't actively go out and like hunt, if you will. So plankton-eating species include the whale shark and basking shark. Others can be very, very swift and active predators, attacking very quickly and efficiently. So like, for example, great white sharks. I know that they have a pretty bad rap because of the movie Jaws, unfortunately. But if you ever watch like Shark Week, there are tons of clips out there of great white sharks like breaching to come out and get seals and stuff like that. Sharks are incredibly important to various ecosystems. A healthy coral reef is a coral reef with sharks. That's just the name of the game. They are a keystone species, meaning that, they help keep a space nice and diverse. But they unfortunately are being hunted to near extinction because of these little things here, their little fins, right? So shark finning, unfortunately, is something that they have to contend with. And it's not great. So what happens is they pull the sharks up and they will cut the fins off and throw the rest of the fish back into the water, obviously essentially killing them. They need their fins, right, for, movement, but also they would probably die from, that injury that would probably not heal. So very horrendous. If you ever see shark fin soup on a menu, please try to not eat it or anything like that. To finish up this little section, my goodness, this is just so sensitive today. I want to talk a bit at skates and rays. So skates are these little they're basically flat sharks in a way, as well as manta rays or rays just in general. And they move around by flapping their little side fins, which can give them, an appearance like they're flying through water. I like to call them the sea flaps because they're just so fascinating. Some, like the torpedo electric ray, can have a shock that can produce, or shock-producing organs that can produce electricity upwards of 200 volts. So super, super crazy. They also tend to lay eggs. And last semester when I went on the Fort Funston field trip, we actually found several skate egg cases on the beach. So that was pretty wild and pretty crazy, kind of cool. So yeah, a way that you can think of rays, if you ever think that sharks are really scary, we'll think of manta rays or just any ray as a flattened shark. So maybe they won't be as scary. Okay, so when we come back for our next little set of videos, we'll talk about bony fish. And I think that may actually do it for the day in terms of materials. So, with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.